Hello, everyone. I'm North Hempstead Town Supervisor Judy Bosworth. In response to the COVID-19 pandemic, we have embarked on creating a virtual exercise series for our senior residents. We partnered with our Project Independence fitness instructors to host these virtual classes, which will allow you to stay fit and healthy by participating from the safety of your home. Please enjoy.
Okay, this is basic mat yoga. I'm going to start seated. So I'm finding it, but I'm called a comfortable seated posture, which is relative. So I'll explain how I come into this. I'm going to take my legs out in front. I'm going to switch my legs. So this time I'm taking my left foot under my right knee, my right foot under the left. The basic, what we call Sukhasana, easy seated posture. I want my body like my back on like a straight line, so that I'm drawing my ears back so they're over the shoulders. Shoulders and hips and ears are all in a line. My legs press down, just release and relax the legs. You notice maybe you start to lift your legs up, because this can be a difficult place to be. Just allow your legs to rest down. We'll bring our hands to prayer. As your eyes close from top to bottom. And we'll start with chanting the sound Om. Exhale, release your hands down, let your eyes crack open. We want to, again, pressing into the ground, let your legs push the ground away. It's like the laws of nature, of inertia. As I push into the ground, my spine lengthens up. That's what we want. We want to find length in our spine. As many people you'll see will actually start to lose height throughout their lives. So this is a way I think I like to try to make myself taller, by reaching my head up. I'm pushing my hands into my legs, helping to extend this deepening pressure into the ground. I'm going to push my hands forward, so I'm pushing the skin and muscle towards my knee. I want the reaction to take my arm bones away from each other, so the shoulder blades press onto the back. And I'm going to take my arms up, lengthening my hands like I'm trying to push the floor away and touch my fingers to the ceiling. Again, trying to lengthen the spine. The spine contains all what they call discs, and we want to find as much space between those discs as possible. That's going to do a little bending from side to side. And there's some really bad problems with the spine if that space between these discs goes away. The vertebrae rub on each other, and it can create a lot of discomfort. I'm going to do these one more time on each side. So trying to lengthen my body in opposite directions. That's going to be the main physical practice, lengthening our body in today's class. Coming up, and I'm going to lower my hands down. I press my hands down, lifting my chest up. So I'm not only pressing my hands down, I'm trying to traction my hands back to lift the chest, and I'm going to take my arms around and up. And exhale, I'm going to turn and twist. I'm going to hold this posture without holding the breath. 2 more breaths. Holding about 5 breaths. Inhale, I'm coming up. And turning and twisting to the other side. And coming up. And I'm going to come on to hands and knees. And we're going to come into some basic, again, same thing, lengthening the spine. So I'm going to take my right leg back, and I'm going to take my opposite hand, which is my left hand, away. So they're both reaching away from the center of my body. You may find when you're first doing this, it's not so easy to balance. You may find also the hip wants to lift up. Keep the hips level with each other. As we're starting with the easier stuff, and I'm going to switch sides. And as we go through, I'm going to make these more challenging as we go, depending on how we're gravity, because I'm on one hand and the lower part of one leg is more touching the ground, which makes this easier. When we have less on the ground, the harder this is going to get. So I come to my, what I call in the table pose. I'm going to come to stand. So I'm going to curl my toes in. I'm going to lift my hips up into the downward dog. We're not going to stay here for very long. I'm going to walk my feet forward to the front of the mat. My back is flat. I'm going to exhale. I'm going to bring my hands onto my hips, lifting my shoulders. I'm going to come all the way up to stand. We'll call this attention. Not quite like a military. I got the stability, the firmness, but not rigid. My legs are pressing down, so they're firm. My ears, I draw my ears back so they're over the shoulders, shoulders over the hips, hips over the ankles. Doing this while I breathe comfortably. As we're going to start to move into this, to start to warm up the body, I just take my inhale. My inhale to take the arms all the way up. And the whole exhale to lower down. The main purpose of this is to build a rhythm to my breath. And then building and linking that to the movements of my body. As we'll do more movements, it gets a little bit harder. The important thing is to find that rhythm to the breath. As I adding on to this, this time on my exhale, I'm going to fold forward, bringing my hands down towards the ground. Folding all the way in as much as I can comfortably. I'm going to bend my knees a little bit. I'm going to lengthen my spine. And then as I bend further down, I can reach a little further. See, my hands are touching the ground. The inhale, I'm going to come all the way back up. And exhale back again and start at the beginning at attention. We'll do that one more time. Inhale. Exhale. That's the most important part of this. Finding the rhythm to the breath. I come up halfway up on my inhale. all the way down. As I do this more often, see now my hands are getting closer to the ground. Inhale all the way up, back to attention. Just a little pause here, just to find that breath again. Noticing if the breath is becoming more difficult, that means back off. As this will become more challenging. Adding on to this, inhale, exhale, inhale and coming up halfway. This is also called prepare. I'm going to step back into a plank pose, which can become much more difficult, but for now we're just going to pause here. I'm going to gently lower my knees down. You're welcome to keep your legs lifted the whole time. I'm going to come down into a half push-up. Inhale, a little bit of a back bend. It's called baby cobra. I come back through table into downward facing dog pose. Just a couple of breaths here. Normally we hold this longer, but I'm just going to come back and do one more. Just taking the steps forward. You can, if it's hard to step forward, you can walk forward. Because a lot of times the foot only comes halfway. You have to pull it forward. The back one is a little easier to come up. Full fold. Now see how my palms are touching the ground. I inhale, I come all the way up. Exhale, back to the beginning. As I practice, I bring my feet closer together when my body warms up. Back to attention. I use the full inhale to come up. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Plank pose. And I'm going to lower. This time I'm going to keep my knees lifted and touch everything down at the same time. I come up into the upward dog instead of the baby cobra. And I'm going to roll over my toes and come into downward dog. Couple of breaths here, and I'm going to step forward. Again, this time I'm going to step all the way forward. See, I have to draw my belly in to get my foot all the way up. The second foot comes all the way alongside of it. My feet are together now as I touch my hands to the ground. The inhale and exhale. Okay, some of you may notice I have a block with me. So I'm going to put the block on the outside of my mat. Stand in the middle. I'm going to come into some standing poses. Again, my legs are still firm, and I'm going to take a wide step out with both legs. I know when I first started using a block, my teacher said, "Oh," he goes, I thought, "Oh no, I'm too good for that." Now this is to make it harder, to bring you to the next level, if you want. From here, I'm going to turn to warrior two. And then into side angle. So I'm going to turn my legs out to the side, my arms reaching out of the center. I bend my front knee. Coming back to the rhythm of the breath. We want to think of it as a progressive practice. So we're going to come into side angle. The basic is to have your hand on the top of the knee, my arm, and then my other arm comes alongside. When you start to get more advanced, you want to come a little deeper. I bring my hand onto the block. Now the block comes in 3 different settings, so I can lower the block down as I progress into a deeper pose. If you have one block like I have, you just have to remember to take the block with you. I'm going to come back up through warrior two. I'll pause in the middle just for a moment, just so I can put the block on the outside of the other leg. Second side. I take the arms up. I bend my front knee. Warrior two, second side. I reach my arms away from each other. So my upper back is engaged to do this, as again, we're working and going in opposite directions. My arms, my hands going the opposite way of each other. radiating out of my chest. Side angle, I come in here, but I want to keep the pressure in the back, outer edge of the back foot and reach through the top hand. So my hand and foot are now moving away from each other. And again, I'm going to go deeper, and you can go deeper until eventually you don't even need a block anymore. You can put your hand flat on the floor. No hurries. Don't rush through it. You want to maintain the posture. I'm going to come up again. I'm going to take the block with me and put it on the outside of my other foot. Triangle pose with a option to come into the half moon. Ardha Chandrasana. It's an exciting little pose. And again, you can progress into this slowly. So I'm turning to my right so that I'm setting myself up for triangle. My legs are straight in this pose. I take my arms up. I'm going to reach out. My hips go one way. See how my hips are going this way? My hand reaches out and down. I could put your hand on the block. I want to keep the block there for a reason. My hand's on the shin. As I exhale, I come in deeper, and maybe you can inhale. You can look up at your palm, your top hand. With each exhale, I'm coming in a little deeper, little by little. When we're going into these awkward places, you don't want to go too fast, going beyond where your body should be ready, is ready to go. As I'm preparing for half moon, I bring my top hand down and I look down. I want to shift the weight from two legs into just one. So I'm going to bring my hand here and I step the back foot in a little bit. You see, I'm lifting up onto the heel of the back foot. And I'm going to go back to both legs, and then again, I'm just only barely touching the ground. This time, I'm starting to leave the ground. So I'm standing on one leg and one hand. And you can keep developing this deeper and deeper, coming here, lifting the leg up, maybe lifting the arm up. And when you start to feel really good about yourself, look up at your top hand. It will be definitely a more challenge to the balance. I'm going to come back into the triangle pose. And I'm going to come back up. And I'm going to turn to center. Again, I'm repositioning my block. Well, I'll push it right out here because I want to bring it just out, just past my foot. And I'm going back to center. And I'm going to turn my feet to the other side. And I'm going to shift my hips back as I reach out and down. I'm bringing my hand onto the shin. I inhale. As I look up towards my hand, my exhales, I keep coming in a little bit deeper. Listening to what my body will tell me when I've gone to that point where I'm getting a stretch, but I'm not overreaching. I'm going to transition into the half moon. So I'm shifting the weight from the back leg into my hand, my left hand, and my one leg. Little by little. Start off a little. After a while, you get good at this. It's just all one movement. See, I even have my hand on the floor, not on the block. A little bit harder. A little harder too is to look up at the hand. As soon as you start to move your head around, start looking around, it's going to get harder to balance. But if that happens, you lose your balance, just come down and then maybe come back up again. The more times that your balance is lost and you regain, that's how we get stronger. Now I'm going to come up. Okay, my hands to the hips. Oh, okay, deep exhale. I'm going to make my feet get a little too close together. I'm going to come into a wide leg forward fold. I draw my belly and I lift my chest up. I'm going to bring my head down towards the ground. As I said, towards the ground. My head doesn't touch the ground in this. Then I inhale, I come up halfway, lengthen my spine. And oh, yeah, I think I can came a little bit deeper. But notice how the shoulders want to come down towards the ears. Lift the shoulders away from the ears. So the head is hanging down. The shoulders go the opposite direction. And we just breathe comfortably. Again, that opposition, my head is nice and floppy, and it's like traction for my neck. But my upper back works very hard. I'm going to come out halfway, lengthen my spine. I bring my hands to the hips and come all the way up. Bring my legs together. I'm going to do a little bit more balance. Tree pose. So I find the weight right centered. My bones are stacked one on top of the other. And I just shift the weight a little bit to one side so I can take the other leg up, out to the side. I'm bringing my hands to prayer. You can hold on. You can keep your hands at the side. Then I'm going to take my arms up. So this is our second balance. I want to do one more balance. Well, actually, everything is a balance, but balancing on now just one leg. Now, as I said, as we have less touching the ground, the harder it's going to get. I'm going to I have a chair, so to help make some of this easier, you can actually have the chair here if this is too hard to balance. The other option is to have one foot partially on the ground, which I mean by if I come up, I have my toes here. But I like to challenge myself a little more by bringing one foot up onto the leg. What you really can't see is my legs pressed towards each other. My foot is pressing into my calf, not into my knee. A lot of ways you can make these poses harder. I'm going to take my arms up again. Whoop, whoop. Just touch down and come right back up if you do. If you have to, start right back from the beginning again. Pressing down, I'm reaching my arms up, coming out the way I came in, back to center here, and down. Okay, we're going to come into some lunges. So instead of facing you, now I'm going to turn to the side. I'm going to be going along the length of my mat. This is a different plane of motion that we're going to work in. So I'm going to take my left leg back. I'm going to bend my front knee so it's over the ankle. I bend my back knee a little bit. I get my core engaged. I bring my tailbone underneath me. I take my arms up. Now, you may feel a little bit of challenge to the balance. As we'll work to challenge this again to our next one-legged posture, which is actually a little harder, this one. I'm going to come out and switch sides. I'll take my right leg back. I bend my front knee, a little bend in my back knee. I take the arms up. So we're going to this is the basic posture, the lunge, and I'm gonna add some variations to the lunge. So we're gonna start with the same one. I come back into my, I'll call it the high lunge, and I'm gonna come into a low lunge. I reach forward, pressing through my back heel as my hands reach forward. Again, the opposites. My hands come down. I'm going to take my left hand on the inside of my right foot. I'm going to take my right arm up, coming into a twist. I'm going to lower down. From here, I'm going to step forward. This is the easier way to come out, and I step up. Next time, I'll go a little bit more challenging as I do the other side. And I'm going to I'll step back. I take my arms up. And the basic lunge, as I will challenge it again, I reach my arms forward, my leg reaches back. So everything above my hips go forward, below go back. I bring my hands down and I come into the twist. Lowering down. I'm going to come out hard. I'm going to come up to the high lunge. Ooh, see, a little awkward on the balance. And I step forward. Okay. Again, a little bit more of a challenge. This is still a one-legged balance, but this time my bones are not going to be aligned. The other poses, I had my hips stacked over each other. This time it's called Warrior 3, and one hip is going to be like have nothing underneath. I'm going to use the chair. If you're welcome to use a chair, and you can progress from using the chair to not using it. So again, I'm going to come into my high lunge. So I step my left leg back. I bend my front knee. I take the arms up. My legs are pressing down. My arms are reaching up. Subtly, a little less of a movement that you might see. My tailbone is reaching down as I draw my belly in. So my tailbone is like it's reaching to the back heel. My hands are reaching upward. Then I'm going to hinge forward. My heel is reaching back. My hands reach forward for the chair. I'm going to slide the chair away and come up here. This is harder than the half moon balance because there's nothing under my left leg. To make this harder, I'm going to just lift one arm up at a time. Maybe eventually both arms. Whoops. I'm going to lower if you can stay here, you want to make it a little more of a challenge. I'm going to bring my hands down to the ground as I lift my leg up. And walk my hands back as I may lift my leg up higher. I'm just going to come out, hands to the hips, and come up. Okay, I'm going to go to the other side. Again, I'll bring my chair back. I can just slide the chair away as much as I need. Come back to my breath. I'm going to come into the lunge. Inhale, exhale. Stepping back to my lunge. Remember to ground, the legs press down. The arms reach up. My tailbone reaches down as my chest lifts up. And I'm going to hinge forward, hinge from the hips. Bring my hands down onto the chair. I launch myself forward as I slide the chair forward. Again, you can lift one arm up at a time, just making it a little less steady, and then eventually both hands come up. Or not. You're progressively making this more and more challenging. I'm going to bring my hands to the ground. Again, an option. As I bring my hands back, I'm trying to lift the leg up higher. Coming out, come back to stand, and standing up straight. Okay, we're going to do one more balance as I'm working my way to the ground. Back to into a flow. Finding the rhythm to my breath, like grounding my legs down. My legs are firm. My inhale, exhale. Inhale. I'm going to step back, plank. This time I'm going to an alternative to the plank pose. For those of us who sometimes have problems with the hands, I'm coming on to my forearms. Forearm plank. You're welcome to stay here. You want a little bit more of a challenge, take one arm up at a time. Or you could take one leg up at a time. It's a different type of balance, but challenging all the same. You'll feel this in your midsection. And if you feel like you're starting to shake and you can't do anything, just lower the knees there. It feels so much better. Nice and comfortable. And at the benefit, I'm stretching the front of my spine. And if you want, you can still welcome to do more, which you can stay here. So I'm going to come back up to another plank pose to show another option to doing the down dog. I'm going to walk my feet forward. I'm coming into the same shape as a down dog. I'm in this inverted V. A lot easier on my hands. It's a little bit harder to breathe because it's a much harder posture. Then I'm going to walk back. I'm going to come back into my stretch here. I call it the Sphinx pose. To me, it's one of those feel-good places. But I'm going to come back through the downward dog, come to sit. Come up through plank, to my table, the plank to down dog. So down dog is the idea of opposites. My hands reach forward. See, I'm almost lifting the heels of my hands. So my fingers do the work, not my carpal tunnel. My legs press back. My belly draws in, so my tailbone reaches down. And my head is just hanging gently as my upper back is lifting the neck, making my neck longer. I'm going to come to sit, again with my legs out in front. My basic seated posture. It seems simple, but it's not. This is something I have to work on. My legs work very hard, pressing down. My toes are drawing back. I was always told to put the hands alongside the hips, but now I like to bring my hands a little back so I can lift my chest higher. The chin may want to lift up. You got to try to keep your chin level to the ground. As we're going to start to do some stretches for the legs and hips. I'm going to take my right foot into my inner left thigh. I'm going to take my right arm up. I'm going to grab the inside of my left leg and my left hand comes to the outside. And I just come here and breathe, coming into the stretch. I notice I'm trying to reach my head long. I'm not rounding. It's called head to knee pose, but I don't like to call it that because people tend to come round like this. I want to keep the spine long and stretch the lower back, which did a lot of work tonight. I'm going to come back up to center, switching sides, taking my left leg in. I'm going to take my left arm up, reaching the inside of the right leg. Right hand comes to the outside. Inhale and exhale. Just doing that inhale and exhale. And you'll feel the stress leaving. As the body relaxes, the muscles will open up. Some muscles left to work. My leg, my straight leg is still firm and pressing down. The back of the leg is relaxed. My head relaxes, but my upper back is still working, pulling my arms back so my head comes forward. And back to center. Back to my basic pose is we're going to come into another rotation. So I'm going to take my right foot towards the outside of the left leg. Now the thing with this is you might see it, but my right hip is lifting off the ground. I want to ground that, but I'm going to bring my left foot alongside my right hip, which is a more difficult pose. If this bothers your knee, keep the leg straight. I'm pressing my right hip down into the ground. My big toe wants to lift up. I'm pressing that the opposite direction, and then I turn and twist. Out slowly, come out of the twist. Straighten my left leg, straighten the right. Back, finding my posture again. And then I'm going to come to the other side. I want to keep the lower back, keep my spine and along. Again, now you can see how my left hip wants to come up. That's okay. I'm going to bring my right leg alongside you, grounding the hip down, and I turn and twist. Each exhale, maybe coming in a little deeper. Maybe because we really didn't do a lot of twisting today. And this is a pretty big twist. I'm not going deep. If you want to, you can go deeper and deeper into this. And as we're not really focusing on twisting today, maybe next time we'll spend more effort into twisting. Today we're working on balance. And maybe someday we'll do both. I'm going to come out of the twist, and I'm going to come into boat pose. I'm starting off with the simple boat pose. If this is still too hard, you can bring one leg at a time onto the ground. If it's too easy, let go. I'm putting two of these together. You can do one or the other. If it's easy, you can start here. As I'm going to do another one, I'm going to put a couple more options in. I'm going to come down. I'm going to cross my legs with my hands alongside the hips and lift the hips up. I'm lifting from my navel, drawing in, coming back to the boat pose. The second variation. The third one, I'll start with my hands behind the leg as I straighten the legs. And again, to make this harder, you can let go with your hands. Now just using your abdominal muscles to keep the legs and torso together. I'm going to come down. I'm going to cross. This time, I'm going to lift not only my hips, but my legs too, making it a little bit more challenging. Now I'm going to come into a boat pose. Bridge pose. I'm saying you're welcome to do more boat poses and then come into bridge, because I want to stretch the muscles. My hips and my belly. I lift up. I'm going to take my arms and I'm going to interlock my fingers and roll my arms underneath. I lean to the side. I take my upper arm underneath me, lifting my shoulders and chest higher. Important thing is to breathe comfortably. I'm using my legs to lift the hips higher. I'm using my upper back to lift my shoulders off the ground higher. So I'm coming almost off of my shoulder blades onto my upper shoulders. And you're welcome to hold this longer, or you're welcome to do more. I'm going to release. I'm going to come down and I'm going to start to do some stretches to counter this. This is the back bending for some people. That may be a lot, and it may feel a lot of fatigue in their back. If you do, I'm just going to lift my feet up off the ground. My back is long. I'm not bringing my knees in very close to my chest. I'm just going to roll a little bit on my back. Coming in a little bit closer. My legs come a little closer, but for now, to get a little closer, I'm going to just bring my right knee in and stretch my left leg away. My back of my neck is long. My tendency is to lift up onto the back, onto the top of the head. Keep your chin down towards your chest. So the back of the neck is long. There should be just a slight curve in the back of your neck. I'm going to switch legs. Like if you took your fingers, I could just put a couple of fingers underneath my neck. You don't want a big arch in the neck. You don't want to flatten the neck by pressing it into the ground. You want to keep a little curve there, as there's a little curve in my back. And I'm going to bring both knees in, almost all as far in as I can. As I'm going to come into some gentle twists, I'm just going to drop my knees to the side as my shoulder reaches the other way. My breath is becoming less harsh, more softer. Because I'm using the full lung capacity into more and more of the abdominal breathing. I'm going to switch and bring my legs up and come to the other side. My legs drop to the left as my shoulders reach to the right, and I look over my right shoulder. Coming back up to center. Again, walking around. This time I'm going to bring my knees in as far as I can. You may want to just come into your resting pose. I'm going to round my spine a little bit, bringing my knees towards my nose. And I'm just going to let go of everything all at once. My legs just open up and flop out to the side. I like to keep my palms facing up and my eyes closed. Just coming into your breath awareness. Making the exhale as complete as possible. And I recommend staying here for at least another 5 minutes. Letting your body release and relax.